Hello everybody, Mac here, and today we have something very special, or at least special to me. Today what we have here is Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons Drizzt and Gwenevar. And if you don't know who Drizzt and Gwenevar are, the only thing I can say is, what kind of childhood did you have? Your education is not yet complete. Drizzt, of course, is Drizzt Do'Urden, the Dark Elf from the Forgotten Realms. It is a campaign setting in the Dungeons & Dragons game. And Gwenevar is his magical panther, his companion, his best friend, his eternal compatriot. And they are the, I don't want to say main characters, because they weren't the main characters at first in a series of books. They were members of a party, but they soon became the main characters in a series of books that started with a trilogy that was called the Icewind Dale trilogy back in the 80s. And the author, R.A. Salvator, as far as I know, has continued writing books even up to possibly this year. I don't know. All I know is that I stopped reading them in the 90s, and they just kept on coming out and coming out and coming out. I should rephrase that. I think the last Drizzt book I bought was probably 10 years ago. I think that was the last time. The Hunter's Blade trilogy, I think, is the last trilogy I read. And from what I understand, there have been many more books, but I am getting on a tangent now. We are here to talk about this, because when you want to talk about an action figure that I never thought I would get, Drizzt is definitely one that I never expected Hasbro would make a figure of, despite the fact that Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast and Wizards of the Coast owns Dungeons & Dragons. I'm at once surprised it's taking them so long, and surprised we even have it. Now, on this box, we have this beautiful display up front, and you can see how reflective. You can see my hands in the silver here, that all of this silver outlining here represents Menzoberranzan. You can see the spiders, you can see the underground city. Menzoberranzan is the city in the Underdark where Drizzt came from, where his people, the Dark Elves, the Drow, came from. Not Drow, where the Drow came from. And that is basically where he escaped from. And then we have the color, the bright color here, representing the outside world, the surface world of Icewind Dale, of where he ended up, of where he found acceptance, and where he found his family, to be completely honest. So, even the box is telling a story, and that is fantastic. I love that. On the back of the box here, let me lower this and bring this up a little closer. Whoop, raise it up a little bit more. You can see there is a diagram, there's an image etched in the back here of him fighting a dragon, which is always cool. Drizzt has taken down a few dragons in his time. You can see that, just like how with Snake Eyes, how it had like an inlaid etch on the back of his slipcover. Alright, up top just says Dungeons and Dragons. On the side, just more black with etching there. And on the bottom, we have all of the barcode and all of the legal stuff. Now, we take this slipcover off. And there is Drizzt and Gwenevar. And look at them. Look at them. We got Drizzt over here. We have an entire second figure in the form of Gwenevar down here. We have all of these accessories. We have a giant D20 because, you know, Dungeons and Dragons. Forgotten Realms across the top. I can't wait to get this guy open. I can't wait to take a look at this. I ordered this back in October, I think it was, on Hasbro Pulse website. I believe it's a Pulse exclusive. There's still a few for sale. But let's just get this guy open so we can open it up and we can take a look at Drizzt and Gwenevar. Alright friends, here he is, Drizzt Do'Urden out of the box, but before we get to him, there's one other thing that I want to show you that I neglected when we first pulled the slipcover off. And that is this. This is the back of the display box. Whoop. This is the back of the display box. As you can see, there's the window, and there's the artwork on the back. And I wanted to show you this because this is pretty much what was etched into the back of the slipcover, just in a full animated form. You got Drizzt with his scimitars, you got Gwenevar, and then you got this white dragon over here. That if you'll notice, in this image, it's not blue, so I'm not sure if, actually, he holds it in his right hand. It's not blue, so I'm not sure if Icing Death, one of his scimitars, is actually in this picture, because I'm pretty sure this is the white dragon that he slew, that he got Icing Death out of his dragon horde. And that's cool. I like that they included this image on the back here. Something else, when I popped Drizzt here out of the plastic, you can see that the tray, there were no twist ties. Everything was held in by just pressure, and everything pops back in with no problem once you get it out. So you can put him back in pretty much effortlessly if you want to continue to display him in the box, even after you take him out and you play around with him for a little bit. Also, we have this. This was the insert in the box that if you support it in the back somehow, you could very easily use this as like a display stand for Drizzt, because I'm pretty sure that is supposed to be Icewind Dale, the human village where he grew up. Or not grew up, but the human village where he lived. So there's a lot of effort into the packaging with this guy that Hasbro normally doesn't really focus on. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the tape measure to him, and we're going to see how Drizzt measures up compared to other Hasbro figures. He's at the 6-inch scale. So putting the tape measure to him, you can see that he comes in just at roughly 6 1/4 inches tall. So there he is at the 6-inch scale. Now, one flaw before we go any further, and that is this. And this is a little disappointing. This is one of his sheaths that if you look on the back here, you can see with this wonderful detail work that the sheath is hanging off of his belt. And you can see that the hanger over here, this is where this one is supposed to go. But when I pulled it out of the box, it came off. You can see how it's supposed to hang. When I pulled it out of the box, it came off, and it looks like there's just no glue on it. So I got to get some Craggle out, and I'll glue it in there, and it'll be fine. It's not a major flaw, but when you have a premium figure like this, it's a little disappointing to see something as simple as that happen. But while we have him up front, let's just take a look at him, and look at the detail of this guy. Oh man. Sorry, keep dropping him. Let's raise this up a little bit. And here he is. Just look at the detail of his armor, the line work, the sculpt. Everything looks fantastic. Look at the face portrait. Just look at the expression in that face. Look at those lavender eyes. Everything about this is so well done, so fantastic. The harness on the back of his armor, even down on his legs. Look at the work on the boots, the skirting of his armor. This whole thing is just phenomenal. I think they did a really good job on the sculpt. I think they did a really good job on the paint app. There's little instances like right here where there's a little bit of paint overlay. I don't know if you can focus in on that. There's a little bit of like paint overlay right there in the line work. Little things like that, but nothing major that stands out to me, even as we look at them right now. Although, I'm sure if somebody sees something, they'll be sure to let me know. The boots, the shin guards, everything about this is fantastic. Now that I'm done gushing about that, let's take a look at the articulation. And truthfully, he has about the same articulation as you expect from any Hasbro figure. His head's on a ball joint, does a full 360, has a little bit of up and a little bit of up, a lot more down. Arms can come out to the sides, but because of the shoulder pauldrons, his shoulder armor, it doesn't really, he can't come straight out. He has a little bit of a butterfly hinge right there in the shoulder. Arms will do a full 360. He has a bicep swivel that I like that the shoulder pauldron is actually attached to the bicep swivel, so you have some movement in it right there. He has a double jointed elbow with some great travel. Wrist swivel, and these hands pivot up and down, and the other hands, which you'll see in a minute, actually pivot in and out. But these ones, his sword holding hands, pivot up and down so you can get some good action poses out of him. He has an ab crunch, as you can see. That doesn't look that bad even when you're tilting him all the way back. It's not quite as ugly as some are. He has a waist twist, thigh swivel, no boot cut, legs go all the way out, not so much back. Double jointed knees, once again with some great travel. Ankle pivot. And a little bit of rock side to side. So there you go. He has the majority of the articulation you expect out of a Hasbro figure. So nothing new. The only thing it's missing is the boot cut. But for as big as these boots are, and for as detailed as they are, I kind of understand why they didn't put a boot cut in there. It comes up high on his knee. There's really no place to put it. Otherwise, you would have had like a line cut through the sculpt. And I'm happy they did it this way. So other than that sheath coming off, I really don't have any immediate complaints or issues with the figure as is. Now, he does have a lot of accessories, and those are ones that we're going to have to go through one at a time here. That will start with this little guy right here. And let me put him on my finger. Let's see if we can get a focus on him. This is a unicorn whistle that was given to him by the denizens of Silvery Moon, which is a settlement in the Forgotten Realms. That this necklace is actually a wooden whistle shaped in the head of a unicorn, and when Drizzt blows on it, it summons his unicorn mount, whose name I cannot remember right now, but it basically summons him from an ethereal plane. He comes galloping, gets larger as he gets closer to Drizzt. Drizzt gets on him, rides him as a mount. Big unicorn, golden armor, very dramatic, looks great. I am really amazed that they included something, an accessory as small as this, in with the figure. To get it on his neck, you have to pop his head off, which it's on a ball joint just like everything else is. So you pop the head off, you just lay it around his neck, and then you just pop it back on. There's a little bit, the hair makes it bulge out a little bit, but not much, not horribly. And it may start to lay over time, but I think it's a cool accessory, one that I wasn't expecting them to include in this, especially when I saw it on the packaging. Something else that he comes with is this, and this, any reader of the Icewind Dale trilogy, or the Dark Elf trilogy, or any of the books Drizzt is in, will know what this is immediately. This is Gwenevar in her natural state. This is an obsidian piece of onyx sculpted into a panther that when Drizzt says Gwenevar's name, he summons her. She also comes from an ethereal plane, and she is his best friend, his lifelong companion. She has stuck with him from the beginning, and it is awesome. If I remember correctly, he rescued her from a Drow mage in the Dark Elf trilogy. I think that's how he ended up with her. And if anybody who doesn't know, anybody who's not familiar with D&D, the Dark Elves, or the Drow, in the 70s and 80s, were like the epitome of the evil mortal race. For as good as the elves were, the Dark Elves were just as evil, just as vile, just as bloodthirsty. As a matter of fact, in the Dark Elf trilogy, there was a chapter where Drizzt had to go on a surface raid for the first time, and they basically raided a elven village. Surprise attack, killed everybody. It was pretty grim and pretty brutal, and it was one of the things, if not the thing, that made Drizzt decide, I am not one of them, I have to get away. However, over time, since they've started to use the Dark Elves, they've sort of suffered from the same thing that the Borg in Star Trek suffered from. How, like, the Borg were this unstoppable force when you first met them in Star Trek, and then as they started to use them, they became oversaturated, and in things like Voyager, they just became Monster of the Week. That's kind of what's happened with the Drow in Dungeons & Dragons. But back to the figure. Another accessory he comes with is this. This is his iconic Ranger's cloak that almost every illustration of Drizzt has him wearing, if not this cloak, one very, very similar to it. The cloak is rubber. It's a heavy rubber, so it does weigh him down a little bit. He does get a little back heavy when he puts it on. But when he's wearing it, he looks great. And it's a flexible rubber, as you can see. It's very pliable. So it's not stiff, it's not solid. It'll bend a little bit with posing him, but it's not cloth and doesn't have a wire coming through it. So you can't really pose the cape on its own. But I do like the wrinkles in it. I do like the detail work in it. The only thing I wish was that it came with some sort of accessory that you could have the hood up, because Drizzt pulls the hood up a lot, and it would just be really cool if we had a hood up version, or even something you could put on his head that was just the hood up whenever you have the cloak on him. What else does he have? Well, you saw the other scabbard, so we'll set that back here, and we will take a look at these next. These are his swords, his scimitar, that we have Twinkle, and we have Icing Death. And Icing Death is the one that he got from the Dragon's Hoard. And I love that Hasbro used two different molds for these things, because so many times for a while there they were just depicted as twin scimitars, which they weren't. He got them at two very different times. This one, like I said, he got from the Dragon's Hoard. Twinkle, I think he got from, if I remember correctly, he got from the Ranger he befriended and trained him in the ways of the Ranger when he first came to the surface, and that Ranger's name I cannot remember right now, and it's driving me crazy, but I'm pretty sure Twinkle he got from the Ranger, and Icing Death he got from the Dragon's Hoard. And I love that they're both different. They both have different hilts, they both have different styles, even the metal of the blade are different shades, and that is great. Something that we get with the scimitars are these. These just slide right on, and they give a little bit of action flair to the scimitars whenever Drizzt is swinging them in battle. Now, the problem with these, I shouldn't say the problem, but because these look awesome. They do, they really look awesome. But the issue with these is they add a lot of weight to the swords. And sometimes he can't hold a pose very long because the blades will start to weigh his hands down or weigh his arms down. And that's a little disappointing. But you can get some good pictures out of it, some good shots. I just don't think you're going to be able to have an extended display with those on the blades. Something else that he has are these two additional hands. And if we take a look at these, we have one that's open, and we have one that's a clenched fist. And the clenched fist goes on his right hand, the open hand goes on his left hand. And what's really cool about this is you can position this so he can be holding the little statue of Gwenevar, and that's cool. It's a really nice touch. You can use it for posing possibilities too, but I really think it was there mainly for him holding the the onyx statue of Gwen, like he's calling his friend to the mortal plane again. Now, something else that we get is this additional head. And as you can see, this has a bit more of a cocky grin with a close cropped hairdo. Now, if we bring the other one up front, you can see that this is more of his action face, his battle face, his I mean business face. This is more cocky. This is very reminiscent of Drizzt, especially when we first meet him in the Icewind Dale trilogy, when he was just so cocky. He was almost like teenager cocky. It was fantastic. Now, what I love about this is not only do you have two faces, but you have two different hairstyles. But you can do this. You can, let's see if I can get this off without popping the head off. The hair pieces are not glued in. The hair pieces are meant to come off so that you can pop one off and swap out the other. Let's get this on here. Watch out for the ears. They bend a little bit. And you can swap them out and get like your custom look for Drizzt. And that is awesome. That you can pick not only his facial expression, but you can pick his hairdo for displaying him as well, and that is great. So that now you have that, his battle face with the straight hair, but you also have his cocky look with the windblown hair, and that just looks really good too. Like, everything about this figure, everything about this character is great. I love the effort they've put into it. I'm actually surprised it's taken Hasbro this long to get some D&D action figures out, considering they own the property. You'd think this would be a no-brainer for them. There we go. Set him back there. Something else that we get is this giant D20 for reasons. Because it's Dungeons & Dragons, and what's Dungeons & Dragons without a giant D20? I like that there it is. I like that the 20 is missing, and in place of the 20, you just have the D&D symbol right there. I think that's really cool. That's a really nice touch. I like the coloring of it, that quasi-translucent with the sparkles in it. I don't know if it's really coming through on camera, but I really like the look of this die. I don't know if I'll actually use it for gaming because I won't want the paint to chip, because I do play D&D, but it's a nice addition to have along with Drizzt. Something else that we get, and I don't honestly know what these are, but we get these cards, these paper cards that have Dungeons & Dragons villains on them. And there's writing across the top and writing on the back, which I'm assuming is Elven, but there's no like translation matrix that comes with the figure. So I don't know if somewhere on Hasbro's website, I'll have to take a look around to see if they have something that translates these, or if maybe they have it on Wizards of the Coast's website. I don't know. Or, I don't know, maybe it's in the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons books. I don't know. I still play 3rd edition because that's my favorite edition. Like, I grew up playing 1st edition, then I transitioned into 2nd edition for so long. Then when 3rd edition came out, I loved it. 4th edition hit, I hated it. And I just never invested into 5th edition. I'm only playing in 3rd, so I don't know if they have an alphabet in there for Elven. But we obviously have a Frost Giant here, a Beholder, a Gnoll, Goblins. Not entirely sure what that is supposed to be. Don't really know. If anybody knows, tell me. Because that might be one of those realms-specific monsters that came out that I'm not familiar with. But then we have the White Dragon again, which once again, I am just convinced that this is the White Dragon that he slew for the scimitar. So we have those. Those are very cool. And then finally, let me lower the camera a little bit. We have Gwenevar, his panther, his best friend. The one that has been with him basically since the beginning. Now we put the tape measure to Gwen, and we see that when she's standing, she is at the back of her shoulders. She is roughly 3.5 inches tall, almost half the size of Drizzt. And Gwen does have some articulation to her. She also has some assembly required, because when she's in the box, her tail is separated. But as you can see, there's just a little slot in there. Just pop it in until it clicks. The tail spins. There's some articulation. Whoops. There's some articulation to it. Not a whole lot, but some. You can also use the tail as a third leg for when you're posing Gwen in like a rearing up stance. Moving forward. Her hips move. Bends at the knees. And that second knee right there. Her paws articulate and rotate a little bit with some side-to-side swivel. She has, for all intents and purposes, an ab crunch in here where her ab will twist. She can do a torso twist. Little bit of travel up and down. Shoulders, forward, back, elbows, and once again, that paw swivel. Twist at the base of the neck, and that can run up and down a little bit. Head does a full 360, and that doesn't have nearly as much up and down, but even the jaw articulates, which I think is a really good thing. Now, as far as articulation goes, I would have preferred if there was some amount of spread. Like, I'm moving this, but I'm pretty sure I'm forcing that it's not supposed to, but I would have liked some form of ball joint so that the front paws could spread a little bit more, for a little bit more of like a dynamic posturing, because like she just can't really get the paw out right. See what I mean? Like it just doesn't look right. But other than that, I think the articulation is fantastic. And if you look at the detail on her, you can see the work of the fur. I really appreciate how they have a little bit of this purple sheen in her haunches, giving her some coloring, some otherworldly coloring, so that the black just stands out and shines. This is great. It's like getting 2 figures in one box. Of course you pay for it, but hey. I love these two together, and I am so glad that they put these two together, because I could not imagine having Drizzt without Gwen, and I couldn't imagine having to buy Gwen separately. It would have been really disappointing if they would have given us Drizzt and just the Onyx figure of Gwenevar instead of giving us the full action figure, and I love that they included her with him. I'm also hoping that if this does well, this is just the beginning of Hasbro coming out with a D&D line of figures, because not only in the Icewind Dale trilogy, or even the books of Drizzt, are there figures I would love to see them come out with, like Catti Bree, and Wulfgar, and Brunner, and Regis, and absolutely Artemis and Trary, his nemesis, basically. But there are other figures from other stories that I would love to see them do, like Soth, Lord Soth from Dragonlance. I would give my left arm to have a Lord Soth figure for this collection. That would be insane to me. So, if you're interested in this, go check out the Hasbro Pulse website. I think that's the only place you can get Drizzt right now. I don't know if he's for sale at Entertainment Earth or Big Bad Toy Store or places like that. I also don't think he's going to be hitting store shelves anytime soon. So I'll put a link in the description below to the Hasbro page where you can take a look at him. And hopefully, we will get the rest of his adventuring party. So until then, well met, my friends. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.